Best of r/Tales from Retail episode 95. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. Hey Reddit. Welcome to my life. So I don't exactly work in retail per se, but this is the most fitting sub I could post on related to my profession. Feel free to remove if it doesn't fit here. So here's the deal. It's 30 to close. I'm the only one here, and I'm doing my closing routine. We're in a big city near a huge college campus, but it's a Sunday night so we're slow. We keep quite a few signs out in front of the shop and they have huge weighted bricks to hold them down during strong winds. So needless to say, closing kinda sucks since you're forced to do a mini workout, but whatever. So I'm carrying these bricks in a few at a time because they're super heavy with no real handles on them. I also try to grab some of the tarps that go with the signs to make it as few trips as possible. While I'm doing this, there's this girl that pulls up on a bike and kinda just stands at the entrance to the store. We're in a big city so people tend to stop by often without really coming in, so I have no idea what this girl's plan is or what she wants. As I'm about to walk in with my arms very obviously full, she looks at me and goes, "Excuse me, do you work here?" Me literally standing there with a company logo t-shirt on, lanyard, weights, company sign and all. "Yes I do. Is there something I could help you with?" Well, what a dumb question that was, cause this girl literally looks at me, arms full, carrying weights, and says, "I really dislike that these doors are not automatic. How am I supposed to get in with my bike? They're not even ADA accessible. How would someone with a wheelchair even get in?" I'm standing there trying to wrap my mind around how someone in a wheelchair is incapable of using their arms to open a door when I notice she looking at me like I'm the idiot. She then asks me to hold open the door for her. LOL. It might sound like not that big of a deal or that ridiculous of a request. But here's the thing. This girl can clearly see that my arms are completely full and I had no issues opening the door for myself. I can't even imagine having noting in my arms and asking someone else to open a door for me simply because I'm upset that it's not automatic. She literally watched me struggle to open the door, then walked right in. Some might think this story ends here, but it does not. We both get inside, no thanks to her, and she proceeds to tell me how much she hates our doors. She tried listing out all the different kinds of people who might not be able to open our doors. Keep in mind these are regular doors, not some kind of magical doors that are impossible to open. Nope. Just regular old doors. With a simple handle. According to Brittany, people in wheelchairs, short people, so short they can't open a door, people with disabilities, people with no arms, etc. Her list was absolutely ridiculous and honestly a little offensive. LOL. She seemed upset that I wasn't fixing it or had an answer of when it would be fixed. This girl wants automatic doors tonight. I told her I would pass it along the chain and then proceeded to hide in the back so she would at least have to open her own door when leaving. It's not that big of a deal, but it feels good to vent about it. Open your own doors, people. I obviously would go out of my way to help anyone that's in need, but some people really like to take advantage of other people's kindness. Before I get any judgment, I wanted to add that she had no issues riding her bike, lifting heavy items in the store. I know not all disabilities are visible, but truly she opened the door just fine when she left on her own. Also, I only mentioned that she's a college student because a lot of the students on campus come from really wealthy families. I go to a state school nearby, but I don't feel like it changes anything. TL. Doctor, this girl wants automatic doors tonight and thinks I'll do in the meantime. Whack. Thank you. Next. I worked for a major retailer for a couple months a few years back. I no longer work there, but I have stories. The kind of stories only someone who has worked in a shoe department would understand. The day this story takes place, I'm stationed in the shoe section, far away from the rest of my section's co-workers who were mainly stationed towards the front of the store. I'm putting away merchandise when I see an angry looking woman looking around for a worker, so I put on my best customer service smile and walk over to her. In my nicest voice, I ask if there is anything I can help her with. She was looking for a specific item of clothing. I don't remember exactly what because it's not important to the story. Seeing how angry this woman is, and not wanting to face her off, I go the extra mile to walk her towards the front of where she was most likely to find what she wanted. I could see some of my co-workers watching us from a distance, hidden behind the display. He didn't have what she was looking for, but she had grown so much more pleasant. However, that changed quickly. She looked towards the area the rest of my co-workers were and launched into a story about how rude all of my co-workers had been when she had politely been asking for help. The woman told me she was manager at one of our competitor stores which, in her words, had a worse reputation, yet none of her workers would have even been so rude to a customer. She had only stopped in because she needed the one thing she came in for, and she never comes in here because she expects the workers to be rude / not have what she needs / the store to be gross. I'm just standing there frozen as this woman unloads on me and my coworkers are watching it go on. As soon as she finished her rant, she became pleasant again and continued to compliment me on my customer service and being super helpful. She turned and left. Once she was out of earshot, my coworkers pounced on me. They asked what she had said and what had happened. I explained everything to them and then they told me their side of the story. She had apparently been aggressive from the get-go and hadn't taken the fact we didn't have what she needed lightly. They laughed when I told them where she worked and how she kept mentioning how rude they had been and how no one at her job would have been so rude. I don't know which side I was on. It was probably a combination of both. The woman was probably already frustrated and my coworkers were probably not as helpful as they could have been. The woman probably responded well to how overly friendly and helpful I had been. I probably placated her and made her feel like her anger was justified. It's a lot funnier knowing the two retailers involved as it gives it that extra level of funny, but it's still a good story. Second that I still remember was this woman who charged over to me in a half. She had come from the other end of the store and told me I was the first employee she had seen, which was false because I watched her walk past two of my co-workers. She demanded to know where the women's incontinence pads were. I had no idea what those even were, and I told her I imagined they would be where she had come from. She started arguing with me that they weren't there and I apologized that I couldn't be more specific because I've never worked over there and I couldn't walk her over because I was the only person in my section. She huffed and stalked further away from where they would be and I ducked out when I saw her walking back in the right direction. Thank you. Next. Not your typical angry customer tale, but instead a story of kindness. Also posted this in r/tales from the front desk, but this sub is probably more appropriate. I was working on the register today at Popular Hardware store and I was serving customers doing the usual hi, how are you going? That'll be $24.70. Have a good day type of thing, but this time was different. I said hi, how are you doing, expecting him to say good, where are the bolts? But instead he replied with I'm doing okay, how are you? I was really taken back, because I had no response. I've never been asked how I'm doing when serving, and was just shocked. I applaud this man and all who treat their servers with kindness. God bless. Thank you. Next. So this happened roughly a year and a half ago when I was working the apparel section of a large store. This elderly, rather large woman came in at around 10 minutes to closing and got in one of the motorized shopping carts. No big deal. She's scooting around looking at stuff when she pees herself all over the cart seat and down to the floor. She then approaches one of my co-workers from another department and demands help finding a new dress, as hers is now soaked. I was nearby folding a pile of clothes, and my co-worker called me over and I put on my best customer service smile and said I'd be happy to help her. I asked her the size, style, and color preferences. The exchange went something like this. Me, I'll be glad to help you. What size and style are you looking for? Her, a 2X or 3X. It has to be long. Me, pulling a dress with flowers on it that matched her criteria. How about this? Her, what size is that? Me, it's a 2X. Her, find me a 3X. Me, I'm sorry we don't have this style in a 3X. We can check other departments if you'd like. Her, but I like that one. Me, well it goes up to a 2X. Her, but I need it in a 3X. Me, I'm sorry, I wish I could help you out with that. Her, you expect me just to sit here like this? What do they even pay you for? At this point, I'm getting frustrated. The women's clothing wasn't even my section. I called over another apparel worker that knew the women's clothing section better and explained the situation and what the woman was looking for. She agreed to help and asked the woman to follow her. The woman looks at me. Her, are you coming, or are you just pawning me off on her? Me, she's more familiar with the section and knows where all the nice dresses are. She can help you better than I can. The woman scoffs and scoots away after my coworker. I take a deep breath and get back to my work. A few minutes after closing, I'm taking the final bits of clothing to the fitting room to be put away the next day, and my coworker is there and she sees me and says, "Hey, can you hold this sweater over the door while I help her change?" I look into the open fitting room, and sure enough, it's her. The cart wouldn't fit all the way in, so the door wouldn't close. I took the sweater and held it up over the doorway while my friend helped the woman into the new dress. After she's got her new dress on, she scoots away. My friend and I look at each other and start laughing at how ridiculous the whole thing was. Thank you. Next. Grab some popcorn, hold onto your butts and listen to my tale of epic drama and thievery. While I was running round like a mad thing doing my delivery, an older lady who I think was probably Eastern European and wearing a headscarf approached my colleague on the till and wanted to exchange a small pile of clothes. She said a couple were faulty as they had holes by the seams, but what really did it I think was the ugliest handbag I've ever laid eyes on that had our old, at least 6 years logo on, but a brand new tag. She checks with a supervisor who isn't in the best of moods as management pressured him into coming in on day one of his holiday, so he tells her to do it. My colleague has killer instincts. She rushes up to speak to the manager, who oddly enough has the company's loss prevention officer with her. Yeah, we get a lot of stuff nicked. That's when things kick off. She's taken into the corridor of the downstairs stockroom by the supervisor, manager and the guy from loss prevention. From what I could see, the guy from loss prevention read her the riot act, and suddenly head of security from the shopping center comes in with a female security guard. Then I hear screaming and wailing and my supervisor comes out shaking his head and gets water for her. Then comes out again on his phone and says when the ambulance comes, send them through. Oh yes, she was a pro. So at first she had held her breath for about 5 minutes until my manager gave her a seat. Then when that didn't work, she turned on the waterworks and the wailing good enough to become a banshee. She declared that her son was in hospital and she'd had to walk from a town about 3 hours away. Her next trick was to ask for some water. When given said water, she suddenly produced a handful of pills, swallowed them before anyone could stop her, and poured the rest of the water over her head and then wet herself. This was when the ambulance was called. The operator misheard the postcode and the first respondent called back to say he couldn't find us, then told my supervisor to hang up and call 999. Since he was on hold with them already asking where the ambulance was, the operator took down the correct postcode and location. Shortly afterwards the first responder arrived on his push bike to give her the once over. No cushy hospital bed for you, love. After he gave her the all clear, the police arrived. She had stolen stuff from other shops and about £200 worth from us. The estimated total of about 6 grand's worth. Loss prevention was practically doing cartwheels. He was so happy. They'd been after her for 6 years. She steals stuff from one store, takes it back to another store where she will exchange and pay the difference. The other week she returned about a grand's worth to a larger store than us, and they did it without hesitation as they're muppets. My supervisor had to deal with her for most of the day. She was sitting out there and got nothing done, but at least he gets to enjoy the rest of his holiday. Thank you. Next. Another post made me think of this story from my past. I had a customer come up to me complaining that a brand of bacon we sold for $6.99 was sold at the store across the street for $3. Karen was irate. I told her to hold on a second, I'd call my manager. So I pulled out my phone and quickly googled the number for the store across the street and called them. They told me that they didn't even sell that brand of bacon. So, of course, I told her I just called the store across the street and they told me they didn't even sell this particular brand of bacon. You should have seen the look on her face. Stay strong, retail people, and just remember, 99 times out of 100, the customer is wrong. Thank you. Next. Story's been in my drafts for about a year now, so here we go. Here's the cast of today's story. Me, the OP, CO, a female coworker, M1, acting shift manager, MA, a general manager from another store, GM, the general manager of our store, DM, the district manager, and the star of today's program, Kevin. So to set the stage, this is an auto parts store with the following quirk of our return policy, that in the case a customer uses a debit card, our computer system only allows us to refund a customer with cash. Kevin has purchased a $200 part for a car that he didn't end up using. He paid with a debit card and enters our store in the midday of our store hours. It's a rainy day outside, so we haven't been very busy, and all the business we'd been getting was all carded transactions, or frequent returns, so it was common knowledge between me, CO and M1 that Kevin can't get his return until further notice. One of us explains to him that we can't return his item, which he grumbles about it, but we managed to convince him to go to another store location that is relatively the closest to us. The reality was, when he left, we were all crossing our fingers. We knew they were a popular store, and they had a commercial sector that we assumed would still be getting business. However, there had been some kind of alleged animosity between MA and our store, which is anyone's guess why. If that isn't good foreshadowing, MA calls the store, gives an earful to M1, and tells him that he has to give him his money. The way this would have gone if GM was here was to access the safe, and M1 and MA knew this. There are the following problems with this plan. We have a sign that says we can't open the safe, for safety reasons of course. The safe contains extra money to make sure the registers have change, so the amount in this safe must remain the same. We would have to take out $200 and take the gamble we have enough to give back to the safe at the end of the day, which was running at a 15-to-1 odds from what we could tell. On top of that, M1 was new and had been instructed not to do this by GM, and so he sticks to his own store's manager. Along came Kevin's return, parroting everything MA told him, including opening our safe. CO, me, and M1 get to take a turn explaining again that we don't have $200 available to get him. To which at this point his response was, company name, doesn't have $200. Why yes, let me drive across 4 states to our headquarters for $200. While you wait, here's your sign. Since we already had a failure to get him to go to a different store, he doesn't want to leave, and now that some customers start showing up, we kinda just have to ignore him to help who we can actually help. We tell him to wait so maybe we have the money to give him, but surprise surprise, everyone's paying with credit or debit, and as we move from customer to customer he asks for someone to help him, which just ends up having us repeat the company doesn't have $200 conversation with him, only with Kevin getting more obnoxious in tone, turning to complain to customers as if they drive on his behalf, where M1 finally just gives up and tells him to leave or he's gonna call the police on him. Kevin at first seems unfazed, gladly telling him to call the police, and M1 makes no hesitation to do exactly so. M1 starts to describe his problem to the operator while Kevin loudly states his full IRL name and then tries to do the typical moronic screaming to interject with M1, because he doesn't agree with the way M1 is describing his actions and really wants that operator to know. He then walks out to his car, comes back to yell at M1 one more time, stating that he isn't scared of the police, and that he'd be glad to speak with them. Then he goes out to his car, then apparently leaves anyway, as when the cop comes up to take M1's statement, he is gone. Cop takes M1's statement then says just to call them if he comes back. Epilogue. As if this whole ordeal wasn't annoying and long running enough, DM calls the store. M1 thought it was MA tattling on us for sending Kevin to him, but since the district office has their number in plain view of the exit door, Kevin could have dropped a shit in DM's voicemail. M1 told us that DM started getting ready to tell him a new one, but the second M1 says that he had to call the police on Kevin, apparently he changed his tone on a dime and then just gave up. Soon after that call, a customer comes in, buys $300 worth of stuff in cash, and people stopped returning stuff for the day. Apparently, some kind of higher power must have been out for poor Kevin. In one final bit of comedy relief in this story, and after the customer rush went away, M1, discussing his phone call with DM, would swear to me that as he was dialing 911 someone put down what they were holding and panic walked out of our store. TL. Doctor, have patience Kevin.